So the question was, if I do like, let's say 100k DPS on a parse dummy, and I do 50k in real trials, why is that the case? Let's go to a 21 million parse dummy. This is what's a parse dummy. There's different versions of them. It's 21 million damage health, right? I have 0 buffs active. I attack this once. What happens? Look at all the buffs that I'm given. Major savagery, sorcery, brutality, my Mundus Stone, minor toughness, major courage. I have increased max stats, magic and stamina. I have increased recovery, minor savagery, minor prophecy, major force, major slayer, minor courage. Essentially what the parse dummy does is it gives you almost 100% uptime on all of the buffs that you should be running in a trials group. So what this simulates is near mid-max trials groups, your DPS being. When you get in a group, let's say it's a pug group, meaning it's a pickup group, you're not super coordinated, right? What is your DPS actually? If you're running the actual exact same amount of gear, why is your DPS lower? Because everyone in your trials group is not mid-max. They're not running all the sweaty gear sets that everyone at the top runs. No one tells you this. This is what they're running. They're having one person run Powerful Assault. Okay, stick with me. Increase weapon and spell damage by roughly, I think, 300 when it's mid-max. You usually have a healer doing this, casting Echoing Vigor a couple times, trying to get as much uptime as possible on that, okay? Then they have someone running Crimson Oath, which is a debuff reducing armor. Everyone's in medium armor, reducing every boss's armor to almost 0 with this. It gets better. Then they have someone running Pearlescence. So Pearlescence. Everyone in the group gets 174, I think 180 at gold quality, weapon and spell damage, which stacks on top of Powerful Assault. They have someone playing a sorcerer, throwing down Atro, giving major berserk to the group for a long time as well. They have someone running Roaring Opportunist and Jorvals, extending the duration of major and minor buffs. And then they have someone running Elemental Catalyst. Whenever you do Flame, Shock, Frost, you apply a stack, blah, blah, blah. And each stack, elemental weakness increases critical damage taken by 5%. We're not done yet. Then they have someone else running Martial Knowledge. When your stamina is below 50%, your light attacks cause the enemy to take an 8% additional damage for 5 seconds. This is all stacking on top of each other, along with Major and Minor Courage, along with Minor Berserk, along with Infinite Resource Sustain. So you have someone running medium armor. Almost all of them at the high level run medium armor. So they're right at 125% critical damage, mid-maxed, and they don't spill over. And then they have about 18,200 penetration with this concentration passive and light armor, so they don't spill over. They have 10 or so buffs running at a time, simulating what the trial does. That's why they do so much damage. On the parse dummy, the reason you do so much damage in comparison to a pug group is the pug groups don't run these buffs. They don't even know about them. They're barely coordinating Warhorns, giving major vulnerability with Necros, rotating them. And the sweaty groups are saying, all right, we're just about to have major vulnerability done. Necro number 2, 3, 2, 1, drop. Okay, healer number 1. We're about to run out of major force. We need Warhorn again. 3, 2, 1, drop. Someone's looking at all the buffs and the timers and literally casting these out. Your build could be dead on in the meta. The reason you're not doing that much damage in content isn't because of you, it's because of your team. What you need to be aware of, the more important stat that you need to focus on is your individual damage. Meaning, when you go to combat metrics on my screen, it's hard to see, but you see 100% of my total damage. When you're in a group or your trial, what's your overall percentage of damage? In the trial, are you at 14, 15%? Are you a big carry? Are you at 20, 22%? Are you a noodle? Are you at 6 and 8%? That's what actually determines if you're doing a lot of damage. In a dungeon, if you're running with 2 DPS, what are you at, 40, 45? Are you big carry at 60, 70%? Are you playing with noodles and they're doing 10%? This is what determines if you're a good player or not. And if you're dead, you don't do any damage. So you need to start paying attention to what's your damage inside of content. Remember, parsing is its own mini game. Here's what everyone's gonna tell you about parsing. Listen. They're all gonna tell you about this. They're gonna say, run Reliquins. Okay, Reliquins is big carry DPS set on everything but the Arcanist. Light attack weaving, you maintain these stacks, you do massive damage. But let me ask you a question. Does this apply to more than one monster? Ding! The answer is no. It applies to one situation. So when you're in a trial, a dungeon, overland, everyone's like, you gotta run Reliquins. Really? There's more than one boss. Also with Reliquins, your stacks fall off with 5 seconds. If you don't mid-max and keep your time on target spectacularly high, guess what? You have to spend how many light attacks to get to 10 stacks? So it's not a perfect set and forget. This is always gonna work. Every situation, you're gonna do tons of damage. Nobody tells you this. They all set up these builds. They all play these mini games. They don't have any heals on themselves, and they say, use this build. Sure, use it in a parse dummy to prove that you can do a lot of damage. But when you actually run content, what should you run? Let's do an experiment. Would Reliquins be really, really good in a parse dummy? Yes. Would it be really good in trash pulls? No. What would be really good for a medium armor and trash pulls? I'm glad you asked. Let's do Coral Riptide. Coral Riptide. Increase your weapon and spell damage by 740 based on your missing max stamina. You have to babysit this, right? But guess what you can do? Do 4 dodge rolls before you start. That applies to every ability you do, including your heals. Do 4 dodge rolls. Tank your stamina. Do it. Here's one better for you that no one talks about, which is absolute god tier missile. Soul's-ons. When an enemy recently dies, it leaves behind a soul for 6 seconds. When you pick this up, you get crit chance by 2034 and critical damage by 12%. Perfect when you're doing trash pulls, right? So PvE DPS is actually contextual. You might have a meta build, and I'm just gonna say it out loud, your group sucks and doesn't know what they're doing. And this is why people that run a bunch of 1-bar builds and trials, sure, the individual's DPS is pretty good, they're pretty tanky, but the group's overall DPS is diminished because when you're fully mid-max and you have very optimized builds running really unique buffs, everybody's DPS goes up. This is the reason why you don't have tanks trying to do damage abilities, because it's much better for the overall group DPS for the tank to do what the tank does. Hold block, keep something from beating on the DPS, and apply buffs and debuffs. Healers, we don't need you to do DPS. We need you to keep heals going and keep buffs high so everyone's DPS is rocking. This is what they're not telling you. Parsing is its own mini game. When you play in content, you got to use your brain. Is it a dungeon? Is it a trial? Is it stationary? Is there a lot of movement? Do I need a heal? Do I need major evasion because there's AoE damage? It's not set and forget. This is Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and I approve this message.